Hi there, welcome to a bit of a shorter video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do a saddle stitch. So I'm working today on a black leather watch band that I've already punched holes in at 8 stitches per inch. As you can see, I'm using filo chinois in a natural color 105, in thickness 532. I'm using beeswax to hold the thread together. There are other methods by which you can secure the thread, however they're fairly bulky and I'm dealing with some small holes. The way I approximate the length of thread that I need is I will fold it in half and then just go about, once again, twice as long as the watch band. There will be a little bit of wastage here, but it's really not that big of a deal. You need a bit of extra thread so you can tie a knot at the end if you're going to tie it off like that. I'm just heating up the beeswax here with a lighter and I'm waxing the thread. Oftentimes you'll see this being performed while you're stitching. However, I find it a bit tedious to do that. So I'm just going to thread my needle here and I'll show you how I secure the thread. So as I mentioned, I use the beeswax and I fold the thread over and then basically use the beeswax like a glue. And as you can see, it's secured fairly well. It won't last the entirety of the stitching, but it certainly helps quite a bit. So moving on to starting the stitching, I want the doubled up threads, or stitches rather, to be near where the watch body would be. So I'm starting at the tip here. And so with saddle stitching, it's very important the orientation and the method by which you stitch are identical each time you lay a stitch. So in this direction, the best way to do it is to start on the back side with your first stitch, and then you want to go with the other stitch over top of that backside stitch, if that makes sense. And then you pull it tight, and you want to pull the right stitch upwards relative to the other stitch, which would be pulled downward. Hopefully that makes sense. And I'm just going to repeat this process, and for the next little segment I'm going to speed up the video just because it is fairly tedious. So going through this, it's pretty rewarding. After the first few stitches you'll be able to see a nice pattern of saddle stitching, and although it takes quite a while, it's pretty relaxing to do this. Just putting your mind to it, and sort of a little bit of an escape, I guess. Anyway, going back and forth, you can see the stitches are being laid nice and cleanly. In the next segment it'll slow down just a tad and you'll be able to see a little bit better how the stitches look. As we get to the end, I'll slow down the video to show you how I end the stitch, because that can be a little bit confusing at times. You can either end it with a knot. However, a knot tends to be very uncomfortable to wear on your wrist. So in this case, because it's a watch band, it'll be constantly rubbing. Essentially what you're doing is just back stitching. I prefer to go 3 back. And when you're stitching, the placement of the thread is important, and you'd like to do it in the same direction, or I suppose in the same orientation as you had done in the forward direction. So you just want the stitches to lay next to one another, so it looks clean and you don't get any rubbing. So I cut it close to the surface, and you can see just a little bit of wastage. And instead of putting a knot, I seal it with beeswax, and then I polish it up with a cloth. And this works really well. I've had watch bands last for several years now. Not to say that they've failed already, but that they continue to last just using this method. So it's a pretty robust method. There's quite a bit of friction offered by the waxed thread. So as you can see, just a little bit of a beauty shot of the stitches. they're not perfectly even, but as you wear the band, the stitches will relax and a bit of the beeswax will melt and it'll look even better. So just in this next clip, you can see I've finished both sides now, and I'm going to move on to stitching the other half of the band. This is another sped up segment. It's the same process, and keeping in mind that I finished the stitch on the end that would be close to the watch body, so on this side I'm going to do the same because it just offers a bit of symmetry when you look between the buckle side and the tail side. I'll also finish it off the same. In this clip I've already finished the other side, and I just included this just to show you it's the same process. So I'm just finishing it off here, and I'll seal it with some beeswax, like so, and there you can see we're all done. So it's ready for edge paint. In some cases you might also want to burnish the leather, however this is pretty thin stuff and you need to clamp it up pretty well. As you can see, the stitches sort of lay in a diagonal pattern. In this case, when I'm using a diamond chisel to punch the holes, that's sort of desirable, and it lays straight on the back side, as you can see. So I was happy with how this watch band turned out. This was a Christmas gift for a good friend of mine, and I use the same process for all of my other products. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.